Well, hello everyone, Mr. E here, and today I'd like to talk about somebody that I haven't spoken of in a number of months, in at least 6 months or so, probably even longer, and that's the Ogryn, the big boy, the resident hulking behemoth of Darktide, although a lot of times it feels like you're kind of the smallest character on the team. His size is supposed to be something that is played to his advantage in this game, but yet I think that it has always been the case that his size is his biggest detriment. And that is why what I'd like to do today is start a series of, I think I'm probably just going to do this for the 5 non-Hive Scum classes because Hive Scum is so new, but exploring a potential rework to the rework. Since every class excepting RBDs has had a rework at this point, I guess we'll call this rework squared or Mr. E work, like, you know, something like that. We'll figure out what the pun is somewhere later down the line. But yeah, just going through, I want to assess what the strengths of these classes are. Maybe not in the, oh yeah, this is what makes the class super powerful and win the game sense, but in what makes this a good and fun class to play fundamentally. What the fantasy is behind, oh, why would I choose an Ogryn versus a veteran versus a psyker, and really hone in on that. And I don't want to make this as a set of recommendations that's going to put undue work on Fat Shark, where I'm like, oh, and they should make like Psyker have like 17 more stabs or whatever. While that is an awesome idea, I really want to stick to working with what we already have, so the weapons and things that we already have in the game, but what they can do with relative ease, comparative ease anyway, is change the talents. And we've seen a lot of that in just very recent weeks with the way that Hive Scum has been managed in the first few days of its release. They went ahead and swapped the positions of like 50% of his talents, and then they took the rocket launcher and just quadrupled its damage and made it one of the best blitzes in the game. So if that sort of potential is available for the Hive Scum at a moment's notice, then a similar thing should be accomplishable for our friends here in the rest of the cast. So this video today will be focusing on a rework for Ogryn. We'll be looking at his talent tree and talking about what makes him strong and what is really holding him back. And as you might have seen in my recent video ranking the power levels of the classes, if you haven't seen it, go watch it now, or I guess, you know, that's the spoiler warning for you. I thought that the Ogryn is the second weakest class in the game. He is the second least powerful. The only one that's behind him is the Hive Scum, and the Hive Scum, if he is given any more power, will pass the Ogryn. The Ogryn is only clinging to this because he has high stagger values and can crowd control enemies very effectively. If he was stripped of that capability, or the Hive Scum was able to level the playing field in some way, such as by having more guaranteed evasion or even more damage or armor rending capabilities, yeah, he will surpass the Ogryn, because the Ogryn right now, that's really the only reason to play the Ogryn. There are better options for melee damage, there's better options for range damage. One of the things he does, probably the thing that he does, is he controls the battlefield by concussing enemies, by knocking them on their ass. And you'll see in the gameplay footage, it's running behind me while I'm yapping here, that indeed he is doing that quite effectively. He's able to bowl through these enemies and CC them for the team. But that's not to say that's the only ability that can do that, because you've also got Veteran Shout who can do that sort of thing. You've also got RBs who has a charge that can do that sort of thing. So he does have that in some way, shape, or form, but it's not necessarily very stand out in its performance. So I really do want him to lean into that and make that his defining strength, such that that can be why people play this character, and then we need to back him up with some other utility as well. So let's go over here to his talent tree, and you know, here you go, picture-in-picture of the talent tree, so you don't have to focus on it too much, but I'll describe what I'm talking about. The first place I want to stop in this talent tree is I want to stop with his blitzes. His blitz abilities in general are very weak right now, especially when we've seen the introduction of the 3 blitzes on the Hive Scum, which is otherwise a reasonably okay DPS class. He, however, is graced with 3 of the best blitz abilities in the game. He has a reusable blitz, the flashbang, much like the reusable blitz that the Ogryn has in the form of Big Friendly Rock. He has a mega kaboom blitz that is supposed to blow up everything in one big area that is called the rocket launcher, or I believe it's called, what is it called? Who cares? It's the rocket launcher. That's very comparable to the Ogryn's frag bomb. And then, of course, he's got the Hivescum rather, has that chem grenade that does an area destruction effect that lingers, and that's kind of similar to Bombs Away. But the Ogryn's grenades on every count here are just far worse. Bombs Away only has 3 counts and does far less damage to any target, right? Really, compared to the chem toxin. The only thing Bombs Away is useful for is repeatedly staggering enemies and concussing bosses and things like that. But it has a lot of like medium-sized damage that isn't enough to dispatch any reasonable amount of enemies. Then you have the frag bomb, which is kind of a joke at this point. It literally has 1 use, and this explosion is not really any more effective than a rocket launcher shot. In fact, I think it might be less effective than a rocket launcher shot. And the worst part about it is because you have 1 use, this frag bomb, for whatever reason, seems to fail to kill the things you need it to kill a good percentage of the time. And when you have 1 grenade to do that versus the opportunity cost of letting another player on your team have that grenade, and therefore giving them, 4 rockets or 4 chem grenades or whatever it might be, you are being a detriment to the team by running frag bomb. And of course, you've got the rock, which is infinitely replenishable, but it takes long enough. And even though they did buff somewhat recently its speed of equipping the rock and then throwing the rock and resetting to your melee weapon, it is slow enough that it is still not exactly a fluid thing to do within combat, and it's not very effective at anything that is armored. And so when you reach a higher level of gameplay where more and more enemies become armored, you have a choice of, okay, like that enemy is a gunner, I could kill them with the rock, but I could kill them with anything else as well. I can kill them with a single shot from a heavy stubber. So what is the purpose of the rock here? It can kill a mutant, I guess. That's one use you have for it. But what else does it do? Because the Ogryn really only struggles with dispatching heavily armored enemies, and the rock does nothing against Carapace. It does nothing against Maulers or Crushers, does no good boss damage or anything like that. So yeah, this rock needs some serious love and needs to be reimagined in such a way that it is, in fact, a useful alternative, because right now, as it stands, you might as well just like not run anything, other than the fact you'll have the ability to pick off the odd mutant with it. It might as well not exist in terms of contributing to your overall damage potential. So, what would I like to be done with these grenades, with these Blitz's abilities? Well, I think for starters, let's start with the friendly rock here. The frock, yeah, the frock. Let's call it the frock. The frock should be retitled to being named the frock, and it should also be a quick cast, much like the flashbangs that the Hivescum has, or the knives on the Zealot. This should be a quick one-handed animation that you can do while you're doing something else. This would be amazing for Ogryns who are using a shield to cover from ranged gunfire, right? And then just be able to hurl one of these out really quickly. Just put the shield down for a second, or even a half a second, and throw one of these over the top of it and knock out the gunner who's shooting you. Or to, while you're in the fight with a melee enemy, be able to pull this rock out very quickly and nail a trapper or a dog or a mutant who's charging in on you without missing a beat. Right now, it is incredibly immersion and flow breaking to have to put away your melee weapon and pull out the rock, because with the rock equipped, you can't do anything. You can't block, you can't shove, so you're left defenseless and basically going to have to backpedal and dodge, and the Ogryn's dodges are not where it's at, my man. You are not going to be able to dodge back against a lot of enemies that are trying to hit you in order to make space. You end up feeling more like you're a quarterback who's trying to squeeze off a pass at the last second before he gets sacked. I want you to feel like you are just like clobbering an enemy with one hand, and then you just turn and with your offhand just hurl a rock into a nearby enemy's face. And if you could do that, if this became a motion that you could do during combat, in the same vein as the flashbang grenade is, this would immediately jump so many ranks. Because if you didn't want to choose grenades, if you didn't want to use the team's resource by taking one of the other grenade options, this would be an automatic pick, because it would be an automatic DPS increase and be something that skilled players could use more effectively. So this should be just done very, very quickly and very fast. Now, the second thing about this is that they should abandon the concept that this rock does not hurt carapace at all. It simply makes it irrelevant at higher levels of play when the real enemies that you want to use this against are armored enemies. And it doesn't make any sense to me personally, as a person who, I have a dabbling interest in medieval warfare. The reason that swords and such were made obsolete against armor is because, like, they're slashing weapons. They're slashing weapons / stabbing weapons. Armor protects you against that. But what armor doesn't protect you against is big, concussive, blunt weapons that can dent in your armor and cave your skull in through it. Throwing a, let's say, modestly 30 pound rock or so, that's a big rock, right, in an Ogryn's hand. Throwing that rock at the side of someone's head, whether they're in a piece of armor or not, would concuss them and likely kill them. So I think that we should not only make certain that this rock has rending, has the ability to damage through armor, I think it should concuss enemies as well. If they survive a headshot from this rock, go ahead and make this little augment down here called That One Didn't Count. Big Friendly Rock replenishes a charge if you hit a weak spot or hit no enemies. Additionally, if you hit a weak spot and the enemy doesn't die, they are concussed. They are stunned for, let's say, 3 seconds or something. And that would work beautifully with the ability to throw this quickly in a pinch, because you get into a combat with a crusher and the first thing you do, bonk, smash him in the head with a rock such that he is now stunned, and you can now capitalize on the fact that a lot of Ogryn's attacks and stuff work better on staggered enemies, and perhaps this even puts them to a high level stagger. So really great way to refit the rock there. For our middle blitz here, the frag bomb, what would I do about this thing? Well, first of all, one charge is just not ever going to cut it. At the bare minimum, this grenade needs to be made into having 2 charges, and I think that is the starting point here. Then we also need to just have this penetrate terrain and have very little fall off. If it's going to have 2 charges as compared to the rocket launcher, then it needs to be assured to do its damage, right? It needs to be guaranteed that you are going to get value out of this. And too many times you'll drop one of these bombs or throw one of these bombs and it'll impact behind a railing or a pillar or something like that. And it just so happens that that particular piece of level geometry is blocking the explosion. And so things will survive very close to the epicenter of it when seemingly they really shouldn't. So making certain that this thing is programmed just to ignore terrain and nuke everything and kill everything around it would be amazing. It wouldn't be too bad if, for as few charges as you have here, if it did some very effective damage against bosses. This could perhaps even be a blitz that does effective damage against captains, because captain's shields and captain's health pool in general is not generally all that affected by blitzes, so it'd be interesting to have a counter to that for this. Something that fits into a niche that we don't already have. I think that of all the grenades right now, the cluster bomb is probably in the best place of the ones that exist, although I really love the cluster bomb integration that exists within the Mortis trials. If you've never played it, there is a modifier for the cluster bomb that enables the cluster bomb to drop a variety of grenades, because it's a big box of grenades. When you open it up, it's about 6 grenades in this pack that he hurls, and what this augment does is it makes it so that the box has a myriad of grenades in it. It has 2 incendiaries, 2 shock grenades, and 2 explosive grenades, and those all go off and put varying floor effects down and do effects to enemies. I think this is firstly super fun, but also very interesting and makes it more powerful and more diverse to play with than just something that explodes. So perhaps just making this grenade by default release those 9 grenades around the target, or 8 grenades or so, and then making the second modifier here, making those grenades that variety pack, that multi-pack, I think would be a great thing to do. Okay, so that's what I want to say about the grenade stuff. I think otherwise, in the talents at the top of the Ogryn tree here, he is doing all right. I don't really see, generally, I don't really see a whole lot of problem with the Ogryn's talents. On the whole, he has a good mix of defense and offense in there. He's doing all right. He just lacks diversity, and a lot of that is his weapons, which we'll talk about in a minute. Let's get down to the abilities here. The abilities have one notable problem. That is that one of these abilities is just not like the others. Both Indomitable and Loyal Protector are amazing abilities, as you'll see in the gameplay footage here. Indomitable getting some serious value. The super short cooldown of this ability, 30 seconds, which I believe could be even shorter. If they want to lower this to 25 seconds, I wouldn't cry about it. This super short cooldown ability is incredibly effective. If I were to change it at all in any way, I would love if there was an augment for Indomitable that would, instead of having you charge, just give you the berserk effect instead. The ability to move fast like that and attack faster like that would be amazing on a build if you could sustain that for any amount of time instead of just charging in and getting a very, very short buff with that. Because I would love to play an Ogryn build where my movement speed is actually comparable with some of my faster allies like the Zealot and the Psyker. Those guys seem to outstrip me over any amount of terrain and get into combat before me, and I really, really hate that as a melee Ogryn. I would love if there was a melee Ogryn archetype where I could actually use the fact that I am much larger than these guys and have a bigger stride to get ahead of them, or to at least keep up with them and get into combat. I also wouldn't be insulted if the class was given the ability that is also exists in Mortis Trials, where I believe it's called Goliath or Colossus, one of the new archetypes you can pick up in Mortis Trials, gives you the passive effect of when you are sprinting and have stamina, you bowl over every enemy that you run through. And I think that was pretty much designed for the Ogryn to have, and it really fits well with the fact that Ogryn can dodge and push his way through enemies. It never really made any sense to me how a Ogryn moving at full steam forward through enemies cannot just run over a lot of these smaller enemies, but then somehow he can turn to the side and dodge into them. So I think that is probably a thing that could just be added at a base level, or perhaps wrapped into an ability like that. If they were to make Indomitable have like 2 different modes, the charge mode that builds up damage, or the berserk mode, which removes the charge, and instead you just move super fast for like 15 seconds or so. I could see both of those. Loyal Protector, no notes, really, really good ability. I think it's just an absolutely staple ability and is very useful and a good one that helps players of all stripes. But over here we have Point Blank Barrage, and as I've spoken about for a long time, this ability is in sore need of a rework, of some redesign. The problem that it currently is saddled with is that it has too many different buffs, and not enough of them affect any one of the Ogryn's arsenal. The Ogryn's arsenal is kind of all over the place, right? He has some close range shotgun type weapons. He has some long range snipey shooty type weapons. He has fast firing weapons. He has a grenade launcher and a shotgun, both of which are single shot, and therefore they only really care about reload speed. And he may or may not be attacking from close range at all. And so for most of these weapons, they only get 1 or 2 of the benefits of Point Blank Barrage and not much else. And on the grand scheme of things, how much does the rate of fire or reload speed or any of those things really matter for the Ogryn, a class that has a very limited ammo capacity? The Ogryn will, when in gun configuration or the gun toting configuration, as you can see in the emblem itself or the icon for the ability, Gunlugger Ogrins will use twice as much ammo as a similar DPS dealing class. You could have a ranged veteran or ranged hive scum who is completely or very nearly completely ammo self-sufficient and can even provide ammo to the team, and they'll do as much damage as the Ogryn while having additional benefits to provide to the team. The Ogryn will have to invest their ultimate ability in doing this with point blank barrage, and then will consume an absolutely huge amount of ammo. And I know that Ogryns are hungry creatures, but they really shouldn't be hungry for ammo on this level. So what I would love to see here, and I think a great way to first start balancing point blank barrage, and it really does, it kind of shocks me that point blank barrage does not have this baked in at a baseline, is to make point blank barrage give the weapon unlimited ammo during its effect. This is something that Desperado gives to its weapons when it's in effect, and that ability lasts for 30 seconds, perhaps even longer, on a class that already has another way to sustain its infinite ammo. This class has a very, very limited ammo capacity and cannot easily replenish its own ammo, and this ability has an 80-second base cooldown and only lasts 10 seconds. How much damage, how game-breaking would it be to have this archetype or this ability give you 10 seconds of unlimited ammo? I think the most game-breaking thing about this possibly would be the ability to quickly reload the Rumbler and shoot for 10 full seconds. That would be incredibly destructive, but given any other weapon on this class, the Grenade Gauntlet, the Ripper Guns, the Twin Link Stubber, whatever it might be, 10 seconds of firing with no ammo cost is almost no real effect, right? It's a very minimal effect. It would be honestly kind of on the weak side for a lot of alts in the game in terms of much, really, because you have to remember that, like, for Twin Link Stubber, you'll get 25% increased rate of fire, but really no other additional damage increasing effect outside of the infinite outside of the infinite ammo, right? The ability to continue to shoot. And that would free you up to actually shoot during times where point blank barrage isn't up, because you'll be like, oh, I can always use point blank barrage and achieve infinite ammo for a little while there. So perhaps there could be something done here. Perhaps they could remove some of the reload speed or make it weapon specific, such that you only get certain buffs with it, so to keep it away from the Rumbler, or just let the Rumbler have infinite grenades for 10 seconds, whatever, who cares? There's more broken stuff in the game at this point. I just really believe that fundamentally this ability needs a lot of love in order to make it viable at all. Right now, this does not buff Ogryn range weapons at all in any way, shape, or form that would make it appealing to take over one of the other options, especially the taunt option, because the taunt option is directly in the center. It'll take you no additional talent points to choose this over any other option. So yeah, you're just going to end up taking taunt whenever you would otherwise take point blank barrage here. So big reworks needed here. I think a great place to start would be infinite ammo. Let's talk quickly about the auras. I think the auras on this class are good. They're well designed. I think they're effective, and they give some good effects, which is what effective means, so I don't know why I repeated that. But they are in the wrong place. These auras are too hard to reach with certain builds. So if a gun-lugging Ogryn wanted to get additional melee damage, it's quite a traversal to get there, right? The only one that's really positioning independent is Stay Close here. But yeah, these auras being placed so awkwardly is very detrimental to your choices on the class, and can oftentimes saddle you with a less than optimal option, especially if, hey, I wanted to play Coward Culling because I have a Flamestaff Psyker on my team and this will provide them a lot of value, but I'm also going melee Ogryn. So melee Ogryn has no reason to ever take ammo stash. A really easy way to fix this issue would be to shift these aura points up 1. So if you made this middle aura here, stay close, take the position of Slam, and if you made this Bonebreaker's aura, take the position of this Rending boost, Coward Culling, move up here, then you could very easily take Taunt and get Coward Culling, or take Taunt and get this without any additional points spent. Certainly would pigeonhole you into either one of the ones on that side of the tree, but that'd be an easy way to do it without rearranging the entire tree. Or you could give up that option entirely and just very quickly redesign the tree to have one of those easy pick 3s that every other class is currently having. I think it's kind of unfair to saddle the Ogryn with this, like, you of all classes at this point must choose very wisely your aura ability. I guess the RBD still has that issue, but every other class at this point is like given this completely free choice, which is I think more optimal in the way the game is going. Finally, guys, let's round it out by talking about the Keystones here. I think that most of these Keystones are alright. About the heavy hitter Keystone, I think this is just the fundamental good Keystone that everyone likes. It would make sense to me that this is something that they tied that berserking sort of feel to. If earlier when I was speaking about Indomitable and the ability to blow through enemies, if they wanted to remove some of these talents like No Stopping Me, it seems good on paper, but I see almost no one using this in actual practice. It doesn't really make you that much more of a fluid fighter. If they wanted to wrap in with this, the ability to crash through enemies while charging heavy melee attacks, or just always crash through enemies, that would be a really, really good addition there. If they wanted to tie it to this tree and make that available to the class, I could see this being the place where they would do it. Over here on this right side tree with Burst Limiter Override, they did a really good job reworking Burst Limiter Override and making it more viable on more ranged weapons. What I will say here, though, is they do have an investment in making certain playstyles work on the Ogryn that just are not going to work at the current rate of things. Namely, these talents that are out here called Spray and Slay, and this one that matches it over here called Bash and Blast. These give you stacking range damage on melee kills and stacking melee damage on range kills, or stacking melee and attack speed after emptying your clip, etc., etc. I think that these could be made more accessible and put together, and perhaps even be buffed a little bit so that this sort of playstyle is encouraged. Because as it currently stands, I see almost nobody picking these because they are in such strange locales to actually do anything with, and we are pretty point starved as Ogryns at this point in the tree because there are so many talent points down here. I think that maybe these could be combined into one talent or something and given that effect so that you could have this weapon swapping Ogryn idea that they're clearly going for here. I like the idea, I just think that it's too point taxing and not valuable enough given that the Ogryn's ranged weapons are generally pretty weak to pull out and fire off in a pinch with a couple of exceptions. Finally, over here, we have this whole side here that is focused on critical hit chance. The Ogryn does a very, very poor job of critting in this game. This gives him 16% crit, and this will give him extra critical strike damage. But again, the way that critical strike damage is scaled, this is a multiplier to what he already has. And because his critical strike ratios on his weapons are already so pitiful, this really doesn't affect the damage all that much. So yes, you can get crits here, but the crits are very anemic compared to other classes' crits. I think a very easy way to remedy this would be just to go back into the Ogryn's weapons and give them some decent crit ratios. The weapons, I understand, were designed because they didn't think that Ogryns would be about precision, would be about hitting critical strikes. But yet, since we are trying to steer the Ogryn in that way, shape, or form, by having these crits out here, why not make these critical options actually capable of doing something? I think the weapons in the game that are capable of dealing crits, these edged or pointed weapons like the pickaxes, like the shovels, those weapons could very easily be benefited by getting crits. Hell, take the weaker weapons on the class, such as the daggers, and give them high crit ratios. And I imagine, not the daggers, but what are they called? The cleavers. Give them high crit ratios and see where they go from there. Because we've got a host of pretty weak weapons that many people are steering away from on this class, and it would be very easy to give them some stats that set them apart from their competitors. Don't just make them all about blunt damage and stagger value as many of the other good weapons are, make them have high crit ratios, or even innate critical percentage, or maybe some sort of passive ability such as we're seeing on the Hive Scum's weapons with the ability to apply those toxin effects, or to be weapon special and having more of an armor-rending capacity. Whatever it might be, I trust Fat Shark's inspiration there. And truly, finally, now that I'm here at the end of time, there is one more area of interest on this talent tree here, which is Feel No Pain. Feel No Pain to me is just kind of a very milquetoast talent point. It is fairly good. They've gone a long way to making this be better than it was before. It gives you quite a bit of damage reduction and toughness replenishment, but there is one really painful thing that exists for most Ogryns that I think should definitely be addressed, and it might be addressed in this Keystone. I believe that there should be a talent somewhere on Ogryn, maybe involved with this Keystone, maybe not, that provides you situational immunity to crowd control effects. Whether that be getting grabbed by a chaos spawn, or pinned by a dog, or hit by a trap or net, the Ogryn should have a get out of jail free card on a cooldown, similar to the Until Death talent on the Zealot, where he can just take a death blow and then shrug it off. The Ogryn should be able to shrug off these crowd control effects, because when you are in a clutching scenario, or when you're in a high stakes scenario, the Ogryn has an exceedingly hard time avoiding these, especially when multiple specials are going for you at once. It would be amazing to not just get screwed over by missing one possible interaction, and instead having the power to go on. Perhaps this is an effect that is only active when you're at 10 stacks of Feel No Pain, and when it triggers, you lose all the stacks, or something like that. Something to require some investment into this talent. But yeah, the crowd controlling being such a negative effect for the Ogryn, it's much more punishing to the Ogryn than it is to any other class. I'm talking about not only trappers and mutants and those sort of things, I'm talking also about flamers and bombers and ground effects, because the Ogryn has such a large hitbox, it's hard for him to get out of those effects. It would be very nice if you were granted temporary immunity from a specials damage or whatever it might be, and removed from that situation on a cooldown. And it could be quite a large cooldown, like as they have with where is it here? This one right here, Pained Outburst. When Feel No Pain reaches 5 stacks or below, you push back enemies and replenish 50% toughness. This can occur once every 30 seconds. You know, why not wrap in here something such as when you are crowd controlled by a trapper, etc., etc., you knock these enemies off. Can occur only once every minute or so. This would really give the Ogryn a defining role. He could just say, fuck it, I'm walking forward here and I'm going to eat this trapper net because it's going to get somebody on my team. We can't stop them. I'll make it me. Or I'll take this grab from the Chaos Spawn because I know I can get myself free. It would be akin to playing Dead by Daylight, and you've got the one person who's sandbagging, and they're trying to get picked up by the killer because they've got Decisive Strike, and they want to get that escape for the team. If you play DBD, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, they want to stun the killer, so they're trying to get hit because they know they have the get out of jail free card, and that would be an amazing role to have the Ogryn in, is like, yeah, go ahead and hit me because I'm about to fuck up your whole shit by staggering everything around me and busting myself free. So yeah, the really cool ideas, or at least ideas I think are cool. Thank you very much for watching, guys. I know this was a bit of a ramble, but I love these sort of videos. If you do too, remember to subscribe and let me know in the comments if there's any other ideas. The least we can do, guys, is put them out there in the ether, and maybe, who knows, maybe there's someone higher up who gets their ideas from videos like this, and we might see these realized in the future. Thanks for watching. Have a good one.